Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on the Crew 2. In this one we're going to be taking a look to see if bikes are actually better than cars by putting them head to head in a series of tests. I've already made a video on the best cars to buy, so check that out if you're interested. There'll be a link in the description, but otherwise let's get into it. Street racing is probably the most popular racing class, and when buying a vehicle you have two main options, a car or a motorbike. For this video I chose the Lamborghini Huracan to represent the cars and the Ducati Dragster to represent the bikes. Also, just for reference, both vehicles were maxed out to a perf level of 280. So onto the first test then, which is short-term acceleration. And yeah, this was a really short test, as the bike can get to 60 miles per hour in well under 2 seconds, which is insane, but also quite a lot quicker than the Lamborghini's 2.5. It's most noticeable on race starts. As you can see here, when the clips are put side by side, the bike just storms ahead of the rest of the pack almost instantly compared to the Lambo. The Huracan isn't slow, but after doing a race start on the bike, it does actually feel a tad sluggish. So that's an obvious win for the bike, showing it's far superior to the car off the line. But what about acceleration on a longer strip of road? Well, to test this I used a speed trap on the New York Speedway. I launched both vehicles from the same place. I found that the Lambo actually came out on top, albeit by only 1 miles per hour. Even with the Ducati's beast of a 0-60 time, the Lambo seems to just about catch up at the highest speeds. If you watch the clips side by side, you'll see that the Lambo only actually passes the Ducati in the last few seconds before the speed trap, so a pretty even test. For the next test I used the same speed trap but completed a lap of the oval track before going through it to record my speed. This was a mix of higher end acceleration as well as cornering speed, and it will also show how much speed the car and the bike lost through the turn. Unsurprisingly, the Lambo won this test, recording a speed of 198 miles per hour. What I wasn't expecting though was how big the gap would be between it and the Ducati, as the bike only managed 184, a whole 14 miles per hour slower than the Lamborghini. I think the limitation for the bike though was its top speed, which we'll take a look at now. The game gives the Lamborghini a top speed of 226 miles per hour and the bike a top speed of 195, so already a big difference here. I went to the salt flats to test this, but also to see what they could do when I used nitro. Before I engaged the nitro, the Ducati managed a speed of 197 miles per hour, which is actually slightly faster than the 195 the game said it would do. With nitro, it did however manage 204, although this is still low slower than the Lamborghini. The Huracan reached 222 miles per hour without nitro and 244 once it was engaged. Something I noticed from this test though was how nitro doesn't seem to work as well on the bike as it does on the car. The Ducati only saw a 7 miles per hour speed increase from the nitro, while the Lambo gained a whole 22 miles per hour from it. I'm not quite sure why this is, but maybe it was designed to try and nerf the bike slightly. Finally, a handling test. This is almost impossible to do completely fairly, so do take this with a pinch of salt. I did a slalom in each vehicle at the Little Eagle Speedrome. It has a mix of very fast but also slower turns, so it was quite easy to see the strengths and weaknesses of the car and the bike. The Ducati was very fast on the quicker but less sharp turns, while the car excelled on the sharper turns at high and low speeds. I also noticed that the bike really seemed to struggle to turn while accelerating, and it also had some slightly worse brakes. The Lambo did just beat the bike in terms of score, however it was so marginal that is probably likely down to me being inconsistent. Overall, the handling of the two vehicles is very different, which I'll talk about now as I go over all the strengths and weaknesses. So now let's go over all the pros and cons. In terms of raw speed, the car definitely has the edge here. Most cars will get above 200 miles per hour easily when they're maxed out, so on the few tracks that have huge straights, you are going to want to be in a car. This is however street racing, where for the most part acceleration is likely a more important factor, and that's something the bike is very good at. The less capable handling of the bike is a big downfall, although the time lost in the corners is usually made up for by its insane acceleration. The bike is however way more fun to drive, at least in my opinion, which is why I've started using bikes quite a lot more than cars at the moment. Bikes are also much smaller, which can make overtaking somewhat simpler, while also making some shortcuts much easier to take, for example this section of the Harlem West Street Race. Overall, the two really do trade blows to the point where everything will come down to what type of race or event you're doing, but personal preference should also play a big part. I think personally I can say that I might just about prefer the bikes, their acceleration, but also because they're great fun to drive. Anyway, that's all for this video. If you have enjoyed it or found it useful, then a like or a sub would be absolutely amazing. Also, don't forget to check out my video on the best street racing cars, which will be in the top left of your screen now. But that's all, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.